to zero against Bitcoin.
It's going up forever.
You're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom.
Good morning, Bitcoiners. Welcome back to Simply Bitcoin, the most watched live Bitcoin only daily show on Twitter, Rumble, YouTube, and everywhere else. We're on Twitch and all that good stuff. We cover breaking news, culture, and mimetic warfare, and we will be your guide through the separation of state and money. Wow, blanking on it. Anyways, guys, so you can tell from the title, we are pivoting a little bit from one of the topics that you absolutely love on the show, which is how much Bitcoin do you need to get into the 1%? And I'm flipping it a little bit because I realize when we do this show, we are inadvertently stack shaming a lot of people. So we're going to flip it on its head a little bit and show you just how little Bitcoin you really need to usher in the bright orange future. Of course, as we say here every single day, it's not about the fiat price of Bitcoin. It's about the amount of sats that are under your control. So I think this is really going to blow all of you guys' minds out there. If you've been here for a while, you'll realize just how little Bitcoin you really need to usher in the bright orange future for yourself and your family and your future generations. But I'm reminded of what CK Snarks always says. You are not bullish enough on Bitcoin. And so this is why we are tweaking the topic a little bit and showing you just how much Bitcoin you really need to usher in what we believe to be the bright orange future. So if you're watching the playback, go into timestamps and you can get right to the point. If you're here with me live, then we got a whole show for you guys. And to put some context on to today's show, I have a clip of Micheal Saylor at Bitcoin Atlantis. So if you guys probably saw this came out about a month ago, but I think this is good context for what we're going to be talking about in the news is that the journey to becoming a Bitcoiner. Actually, we kind of talked about it yesterday. There is a hero's journey to becoming a Bitcoiner. You don't just come into the quote unquote crypto space and end up a Bitcoin maximalist. You might have to put your hand on the stove. You probably start off as a skeptic. Everyone is a pre-coiner. You're not just born a Bitcoiner yet. We are not in a world yet where you are born a Bitcoiner. You have to become a Bitcoiner. So there's a clip that we posted on our Twitter timeline, the Simply Bitcoin TV Twitter account, of Micheal Saylor at Bitcoin Atlantis talking about his journey from skeptic to Bitcoin maximalist. And I think this is a great context for what we're going to be talking about in the news, considering that I think this clip today, or rather this episode today, is going to hopefully expand to the newer Bitcoiners. And you guys know what we try to do here at Simply Bitcoin is, of course, we rally the troops with our friends every single day, all the savage Bitcoiners that show up with us every single day. We love you guys. But we're also trying to get new Bitcoiners into the fold. So hopefully they click on the video, they watch Simply Bitcoin, and they realize that we are in this for the long run. This is a peaceful revolution, and all you need to do is stack sats. So that's the goal today, just to show for the new people here. You know, there's a lot of new entrants in 2024, and I think by the end of the year, we're going to get even more entrants. And 2025, there's going to be a whole new crop of Bitcoiners, and they're going to have to catch up to what we all know to be the truth. There is Bitcoin, and then there's everything else. And the name of the game, as I like to say, is Hungry Hippo. You just need to stack as much Bitcoin as possible, take it into cold storage, do not leave it on an exchange, eliminate the middlemen, and you will set yourself up for a better future, live a better life, because that's what this is all about. Opt out of the fiat monetary system, opt out of a money that is designed to steal from you, and realize that all you have to do is stack sats and chill. It is such a simple life. Go outside, touch grass, make sure your skills are better, make sure you are getting more cash flow. And this is how you succeed going into 2030. And this is the goal. Get as many sats as possible under your control. Well, as you can tell, it's your boy Opti. I'm hosting today's show, but I am not alone. I'm here with the man that makes me look good every time we come on this show. I am the left side of the bell curve, and maybe Chris is more of the right side of the left side of the bell curve. But nonetheless, when Chris comes on, we drop some sauce. And of course, Chris is, I always forget what your official title is at Swan.
Programming manager.
Yeah, programming manager at Swan. So he's the guy behind most of the Swan content right now. And of course, if you guys know, been here for a while, formerly at Bitcoin Magazine, but programming head at Swan, absolute, I would say just a gentleman and a scholar. You know, a good personal friend. I love Chris. He's great. We have great times every time we hang out together. And every time we're on the show, it's always just pure sauce. I speak in memes and Chris speaks in actual English. So we got a good tag team on today's show. Anyways, Chris, how you doing, bro?
Doing well always. Whenever we hang out in person, my liver is always hurting though, Opti. Always hurting. And I know National's going to be no different this year, so a couple weeks.
Yes. Don't dox me, bro. Quit doxing me on the stream, bro. Oh man. All right. Well, yeah. Can't wait to see you, bro. And let's get into the show. Of course, guys, we have a guest today. I'm super excited for today's guest. We got James of Stampseed, the founder, creator of Stampseed, also a sponsor of the show. We absolutely love the products. I actually have mine right here. You know, the Simply Bitcoin branded one.
Nice.
So we're going to be talking about the Stampseed today. But actually, James was just telling me before the show, you know, we're one day out of 4th of July. Most of us are Americans here. I know our audience is international, but I think it would be a miss if, as Americans, we don't talk about and connect 4th of July with Bitcoin and the importance of everything and why we Bitcoin in the first place. It's all about freedom at the very end of the day. Anyways, James, how you doing today? Good to have you.
I'm doing great. You know, awesome to be here with you guys. Met Chris at Pacific Bitcoin, so good to be on with him too. Fresh back from Prague, so I got to see the other side of the world and meet a lot of Bitcoiners there. A lot of them are fans of your show. They tune in daily, they told me. And, you know, I also tune in when I can. I try to do it daily. And, you know, I'm glad to actually be here with you guys. So let's kick it.
Love it, man. Love it. Yeah, well, we got a great show on today's programming. But before we do that, of course, you already know the deal, guys. We have to pay the bills here at Simply Bitcoin. So shouts out to bitcoinwell.com, the best place to stack Bitcoin. It is self-custody by default, which means you literally need a Bitcoin wallet to buy Bitcoin from Bitcoin Well. There is a promo code of Simply BTC. So I think it's bitcoinwell.com/simplybtc. And you can, help the boys out over here. Buy real Bitcoin. Enable your independence with the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin in Canada and the USA with a 1% spread, which is pretty much the industry standard. It's Bitcoin only. We only partner with Bitcoin only companies. And like I said, non-custody by default, which literally means you need to have a Bitcoin wallet before you start buying Bitcoin. And the reason for this is because you don't want to leave any Bitcoin on an exchange. So they're incentivizing you to use the best Bitcoin practices, future-proof your money, and make sure you are stacking them sats consistently. Anyways, as you already know the deal, hold on, I need to log in here. For some reason, I get logged out all the time. Go to your Bitcoin Well dashboard, and when you buy Bitcoin, when you refer your friends to Bitcoin Well, you can get some wishing well points. And of course, when you redeem, you have a chance to win up to 1 million sats. So I'm going to do this live. Pull out your Lightning wallets right now. And maybe we get the 1 million sats today, which is going to be a bummer because I don't have my Lightning wallet up right now. So if today's the day, I'm going to be very mad about it. Okay, there you go. First one to scan it gets 500 sats. And we'll be spreading the love to you guys constantly on the show. Nico always says we don't scan these, but if it's 1 million sats, I'm gonna tell you right now, I am going to scan that that QR code. All right, anyways, guys, let's get into today's show because we have a lot to talk about.
Bitcoin numbers.
Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Is your seed phrase really secure? Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them on paper. Don't store your generational wealth on paper. Paper is prone to water damage, fire damage. You want to put your generational wealth on one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. Your words are actually stamped into this metal plate with this hammer and these letter stamps. And once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamped seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin with peace of mind for the long haul. Stamp your seed on Stampseed.
Guys, do not leave your generational wealth on a piece of paper in your sock drawer. You need to make sure you're stamping it in titanium. Is this zooming in? And I got the limited edition Simply Bitcoin one, so you guys can't get this one, but hey, go to their website, get yourself some titanium, get yourself a stamp seed kit, and secure your generational wealth. Of course, scan the QR code and you are good to go. All right, guys. So for the new people here on the show, we start off with the numbers. That's why we call it the numbers, guys. We got to make sure that you're up to date on what's going on with the Bitcoin time chain. So, of course, the number that most people care about is the price, which at times a lot of us Bitcoiners say might be the most boring number here. But hey, we all know that the Bitcoin price is a real-time metric of people's understanding of Bitcoin. So right now it's at $60,460. The sats per dollar, aka how much Bitcoin you can get for a single dollar, or aka how much the dollar is worth in Bitcoin, is currently at 1,654 sats. My favorite number, because it just proves that Bitcoin is working exactly as designed, is the block height. And we're currently at 850,554. And the total percentage of Bitcoin that will ever be issued, I repeat, that will ever be issued, is currently at 93.9%. The realized monetary inflation, taking fiat currencies to school, is currently at $1.19 trillion. So a little, you know, I think we're under silver right now, but hey, that's just some bear market things. Anyways, the total public lightning capacity is at 4,941.31 BTC, and the days since all-time highs, 111 days, and it's declined from all-time highs, negative 18.1%. The median fee, you know, the average, the fee right now, what you are probably going to pay if you're trying to consolidate your UTXOs, like I'm telling you, is 20 sats, which is, it's pretty good, not too bad. Hopefully we don't get some crazy fee volatility moving forward. But I'm not playing a video. Actually, I'm going to leave this up for a moment, because I did see a Pomp video this morning on Fox News, and he was talking about how the volatility in Bitcoin is going to get dampened. And I think he's kind of has a point there. Yesterday, we were talking about it being negative 15%. Today's at negative 18%. So will we be seeing, you know, negative 50, negative 60, negative 30% drawdowns? Only time will tell. But that's not the topic today. The topic I want to talk about today is this video of Micheal Saylor at Bitcoin Atlantis. And it's about his journey from skeptic to Bitcoin maximalist, or basically the journey that every single one of us has to go through to becoming a Bitcoiner. We all start off as a skeptic. We're all a little weary. We all like, this internet money sounds too good, you know, or rather Bitcoin price is too high. Maybe I'm late to Bitcoin. Maybe I don't need to buy this. It's going to crash. You know, all the Paul Krugmans of the world telling you Bitcoin is, you know, fake internet money. It's not backed by anything. It's going to crash, and all of the other, I think now like 800 plus obituaries regarding Bitcoin. You start as a skeptic, and then the farther you move down the rabbit hole, the more money you put into Bitcoin, the more you are forced to learn about Bitcoin. And once you actually understand what is Bitcoin, there's no turning back, and you don't go back to the fiat world. So let's play this. I'm not going to play the whole video. So if you guys want me to drop this in the chat, I'll give you guys the whole link. So it is at 1.25 here. I'm going to play about half of it, because it really just explains the Bitcoin hero's journey. And of course, you can hear it from just the everyday Bitcoiner, which is us at Simply Bitcoin. You know, we're just Bitcoiners. We just started a YouTube channel, but we all experience the same journey. Or, you know, you can hear it from a billionaire like Micheal Saylor. You can pick your poison. Whichever one resonates more with you. That's why we bring examples like this on the show. But let's hear this.
Bitcoin is an instrument of economic empowerment. And if Jack Dorsey's here, I give him a shout out. Jack Dorsey put that in my head. By the way, don't get dejected that someone may actually be a denier. You know who was a denier? Me. And you know what I became next? A skeptic. And then at some point, I looked and I said, you know, the world's kind of messed up and interest rates are zero and my dollars are generating zero. I'm going to buy Bitcoin, and I became a trader. And then after I bought the Bitcoin, I started reading a lot more and listening to a lot more podcasts and thought about it, and I realized, no, I should be an investor. You know, and I would say when you started hearing about me, I was kind of at the investor stage, but it was everybody in this community and every Bitcoin podcaster and every writer and every educator that collectively got me over the line to becoming a maximalist, where I said, So, yeah, if you don't think you make a difference, you do make a difference, right? You're never going to see a collection of people like this at an Apple investor conference, or at a Google investor, or Microsoft investor, or NVIDIA investor conference, or a gold investor conference. This is very special. I like the orange. I'll marry the orange. When you're orange pilling, right, you're working people intellectually, but there's also spiritual. And they all start as observers. It's all the people writing about Bitcoin on Twitter, and they observe it, but they don't own any. And then they become participants, and then they start to actually buy and build on it. And maybe they own like 1%. And then the believers say, wait a minute, this really is the best asset, and maybe 40% of my portfolio is liquid and my rest of my wealth is in my house. And so they go and they start to put a bunch of their liquid wealth into Bitcoin because they're believers. And then at some point, you get to be hardcore, and I'll call you an adherent, and then you're like all in. It's like the only thing I want to invest in is Bitcoin. You know, I'm not saying you got to sell all your chairs, just the ones you don't need. But this is a spiritual journey, and then at the final point, you become an advocate. And when you're an advocate, it's not just you're all in. You want to go tell other people. You want to convince your company, your charity, your church, your government, your friends, your family. You're an advocate. So think of this.
All right, I could keep this going, but I'll drop it in the chat for you guys so you guys can see this. So I'm gonna rewind this a little bit just so we can get this screenshot right here. Of the journey of being, or rather becoming, a Bitcoin maximalist. As you can see, I think all of us Bitcoiners kind of go through the same thing. I know personally, I literally watched an Andreas Antonopoulos video 2017, the first time it hit 10K. I put like $100 in, and then I started watching all of Andreas Antonopoulos videos, and I got to the point pretty quickly that Saylor was saying, it's like I was thinking about selling all my chairs, like what is it nailed down so that I can stack as much Bitcoin as possible. A lot of people's journeys are different, but there is two takeaways on this video that I do want to emphasize, especially for the audience out there. One is, don't get too upset about your friends being, skeptics, starting as a skeptic, or rather the fact that once you become orange pilled, or once you become a true Bitcoin believer, you go out there and you try to evangelize about Bitcoin as much as possible, and people don't listen to you. This is totally normal. I think we've all gone through this, but the point that I think really should be emphasized is that every single one of us has the power to continue to spread the Bitcoin message. I would almost add that it's our duty to spread the Bitcoin message. Obviously, have some tact. Make sure that you're doing it in a way so you don't look like Charlie Day. But it's super important to talk about Bitcoin, to spread the Bitcoin ethos, the Bitcoin memes, because the world needs Bitcoin. And that's the biggest thing that we talk about here on the show all the time. Fundamentally, you need to ask yourself, what is money? And then you go down to the next question, which is like, why are we being forced to use a money that's designed to steal from us? And then you finally get to the bottom of the rabbit hole, or rather the beginning of the bottom of the rabbit hole. And you're like, okay, it is only Bitcoin. It will only be Bitcoin. And I need to stack as much Bitcoin as possible. So I absolutely love hearing Micheal Saylor say exactly what we say here on the show every single day, is like, there's a process to becoming a Bitcoiner. You don't become a Bitcoin maximalist overnight. You got to put in the work a little bit. But I think moving forward, which is why we do Simply Bitcoin, which is why we even became Bitcoiners in the first place, is because there is a lot of really good Bitcoin only content creators out there. So if you get into the shitcoin rabbit hole, then you should by now know that you are pretty much just gambling. And as long as you know you're gambling and you know what you're doing, then hey, have fun, put your hand on the stove. But if you're like me and you just want to save in something that cannot be stolen from you, that cannot be debased, then it is Bitcoin. And once you get to the quote unquote maximalist stage is when you understand how the world works, why you need to save in Bitcoin, why Bitcoin is the superior money in the whole entire world, why it's the superior asset the last 15 years, all that good stuff. Is because Bitcoin has the best money properties. And then you go around and you tell everyone you can, anyone that'll listen, that Bitcoin is the best. You need to save in Bitcoin, maybe set up a DCA, maybe go all in, whatever works for you. Everyone eventually gets to the point of becoming a Bitcoin maximalist, unless they get caught up in the, the shitcoin circus. And hey, by all means, do what you do. But we're Bitcoiners. We will stay Bitcoiners. And we think the whole world will soon enough wake up to Bitcoin, because we all have the same problem. 8 billion people on planet Earth. are using a money that is broken, and Bitcoin fixes this. Anyways, Chris, let's get a right side of the bell curve take on this.
I always appreciate it, Opti. I'll try and keep my voice down, and I turn my gain down a little bit, so I hope I'm not.
Turn you down a little bit. I'll turn you down a little bit.
All right. I hope I'm not blowing out anyone's speakers. But one thing that I always love is the blue collar Bitcoin guys have a way of saying it. There's the 4 I's. At first, Bitcoin is idiotic. Then it is intriguing. Then it is important. Then it is an imperative. So similar kind of breakdown to the 5 ways that Saylor had it laid out, just a little bit easier to remember. 4 I's, easier for me to remember. Left side of the bell curve. So at first it's idiotic. People hear about Bitcoin. They're like, it's dumb, never going to catch on, stupid. Micheal Saylor even said this in 2013. You know, his tweet saying like Bitcoin's going to be like internet gambling. It's never going to catch on and just die with a whimper. Then it's intriguing. Then you're like, okay, like I heard a couple more arguments for why Bitcoin makes sense. I heard maybe like what is money, like makes more sense. And then you're like, oh shit, like Bitcoin's important. I need to have some of it in my portfolio. You know, I need this. And then it's imperative. It's, you know, the fiat system is dying, hopefully gradually, then suddenly, or, you know, a slow transition from one to the other, because if it's very rapid, it can be very painful and very painful for many people. And I hope that's not the case. And I hope there's not a revolution because of it, because normally that is quite violent. And as someone that hopes to bring kids into the world in a couple of years, you know, I hope to make this world a better place for my kids and my kids' kids in the future. But yeah, I think that's a good way to think of the framing of Bitcoin. And yeah, I think that's kind of a good basis. I forget where I was going to go next, Opti. I don't know.
It's all good. It's all good. Because I do want to jump off on a point that you just said, because if we're talking about new entrants to Bitcoin, or rather skeptics to Bitcoin and Bitcoiners in general, they usually say something on the lines of like, oh, Bitcoiners are just greedy. They just want to get wealthy. You know, they're only in it for the Lambos. But a lot of the Bitcoiners that I talk to is exactly what you just said, Chris. Is like, we literally want to leave a better world than the one that we found, and building on a better money will usher in a better world. And yes, as much as we all love to see number go up, we also really want to improve planet Earth and have freedom go up with it, so that the world isn't getting destroyed in real time because of the fiat system. It's like you can leave a better world for your children and your children's children, and hopefully pass on some generational wealth. Like, I think that is one of the best things about most Bitcoiners that I know. You want to jump in, Chris?
Yeah, I remember the last point I wanted to say. Opti, you said this earlier, that it's important that we teach other people about Bitcoin. And I know I've probably, James and Opti, they can say for themselves, but I've kind of changed my stance. When I first got into Bitcoin, you know, you're shouting from the rooftops, telling all your friends, your family. They're like, okay, Chris is the crazy Bitcoin guy. Like, you know, this guy's a little deranged. But I do think it is important that we teach others about Bitcoin and the importance, because we're trying to, like Opti was saying, and kind of tying back to everything, we're trying to make the world a better place. And we see Bitcoin as a route to build a parallel system that is better for everyone, you know, the kids, you know, the world. You know, fiat steals from people. Bitcoin's a way to meritocratically increase and, you know, like generate wealth or distribute wealth that's more fair. Maybe not equally, but fairly, a fair distribution of obviously the way that Bitcoin came into the world and the way that you need to put your time and energy to acquire more of it. And, you know, if you hold on to it for a long enough time frame, you know, it hopefully increases the purchasing power of yourself and those around you that are using it. So yeah, that's kind of the last point that I want to bring up.
Chris. And just to like put it in memetics for most people out there, it's not about equal outcome. It's about equal opportunity. And that is how you usher in a more equitable world, is that we all have the opportunity to succeed. Doesn't mean we're all going to get the same outcome. It just, you have the same chance to further prosper yourself and your family. Anyways, James, pop in. What's your thoughts on this whole topic, or maybe just a Saylor clip in general?
Yeah, I mean, the clip in general, I guess the topic at a high level, what he's saying just points out that no matter what level you're at, who you are, everyone goes through the same journey with fully understanding what Bitcoin is, whether you're, you know, just a regular plebe or a Micheal Saylor of the world. Everybody has to, you go through this evolution where maybe it starts out where you're just trying to invest in something, preserve your wealth. And then, you know, maybe you get rugged on some shit coins along the way, or, you know, you can fully understand what you're investing in. And it takes a couple of cycles to truly know what it is. But eventually, once you're putting your 100 hours in, or just studying it more, learning more, it starts to put things into perspective. You start to understand that, you know, I saw someone in the chat talk about Lambos. It's not about the Lambos. It's about preserving wealth, preserving the value that you put into the world, and the energy that you put into the world is now harnessed in Bitcoin. And I think those are those things that no one's even thinking of that up front in the beginning. maybe even sailors included, where, as you start to understand it more, it becomes a bigger part of your life, where, you start to advocate for it more, you start to evangelize Bitcoin a little bit more too. And I think that's just, a natural path that most people are taking. And I think that's the best path to take, because it hardens you, just like, metal, no pun intended, but metal's getting hardened along the way, where you just, fully become an advocate of it, believe in it, and you could share it. And, for me, it has been challenging to share Bitcoin with, friends and family in my life, most of which are no coiners, unless they're just really, really anon at this point, which, who knows, maybe they are, maybe my mom or dad's anon. I highly doubt it though, but it's just very hard to talk about Bitcoin with them. And obviously, mainstream media doesn't make that any easier. All the negative press that Bitcoin gets, how it gets grouped into with all the other altcoins, it's just kind of grouped together with this. It has a negative connotation towards it. People just aren't putting in the time to understand what it is, or they're just so confused by what it could be. So for me, like, it can't be Charlie Day explaining what Bitcoin is, because it really does take you to that level, because, a lot of the questions that I had about the world, before Bitcoin have been answered by Bitcoin. Money kind of controls the world, and all the main players and puppet masters involved with it. But to talk about Bitcoin, fully with these people, it just doesn't work. I like to try to talk about other things and tie in Bitcoin with it, or, no pun intended again, plant some seeds with these people to help them kind of understand, what's happening to your money, what inflation really means, put things into perspective, the pizza pie metaphor, whatever you can to kind of get people, if you find out your wealth is being devalued on a yearly basis, and then, it's going to become, 50% gone by the time you retire, if you're, in your 20s or 30s, it resonates with you. And, it's something that everyone should be concerned with. So kind of leading with that information, explaining to people, your wealth is melting, right? Maybe a couple conversations later, explain what Bitcoin is and how it solves that problem. So.
Totally agree. 100%. All right, guys. Hey, there's 1,000 of you guys watching on all of our platforms right now. So smash the like button so you push us in the algo, hashtag for the algo, so that more people get this signal. But before we move on, we do have to plug our boys over at Pleb Party Nashville. If you are going to the Bitcoin conference in Nashville on July 25th through the 28th, make sure you get to the Pleb Party on the Thursday before the event happens. July 25th. This is going to be I don't want to say it's going to be the party, but I think it might be the party for Bitcoin Nashville. All your friends are going to be there. I think most of the big names in Bitcoin are going to be there. It's going to be all 12-hour day of drinking and eating and partying with your favorite Bitcoiners. The whole Simply Bitcoin team will be there, guys. And from what I remember, there's 12 tickets left at the $212 price point. The price is going to increase. So you don't want to be sitting there on Thursday when you come into Nashville and being like, where are all my friends at? Your friends are going to be at the Pleb Party in Nashville. So on that note, let's get into the news so you guys get to exactly why you're here on today.
The Daily News.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation Devices. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US. It's fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a simple feature phone. So you will know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes. Experience the peace of mind that comes with taking ownership of your own keys. After a massive sellout during Bitcoin Miami 2023, the Passport is back in stock at foundationdevices.com. Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, completely air-gapped security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. If you're thinking about getting your Bitcoin off exchanges, this is the one for you. Check out the Passport link in the show notes below to learn more.
Again, guys, don't think about taking your Bitcoin off an exchange. This is like literally the most important thing to be doing, is taking your Bitcoin off an exchange. I don't care how you buy your Bitcoin, just make sure you take it off an exchange. And I'm convinced that the Passport by Foundation paired with the Envoy might be one of the sleekest, easiest ways to secure your cold storage. So on that note, guys,
and then Opti afterwards, you got to take your stamp seed and back it up, back it up on your stamp seed, you use your foundation device, back it up on steel. You don't want to lose that in case the device freaks out.
Everything works here in cahoots. You make sure you get yourself a hardware wallet. You make sure your seed stamped in some titanium. This is the way you buy off Bitcoin. Well, there's a method to the madness, boys and girls.
Not this. A lot of the hardware wallets come with this. This is bad. This will get you rugged, right? You want to stamp it into the titanium. Nice and deep letters. It's in there good. And here's a damaged version, right? House fires, corrosion, water. Don't get rugged, right? Just
don't get rugged.
This is better than paper.
I'm glad James is showing us his seed, so I'm going to sweep that. If someone beats me to it,
no.
That should be the new motto. Don't get rugged. Anyways, you're here on the topic of today's show. How much Bitcoin do you really need? When I got into Bitcoin, it was roughly around $10,000. So the traditional OG advice was like, at least get yourself one Bitcoin. So at the time, that was roughly around $10,000, $15,000. It went down to like $3K in the bear market. So I think it's still pretty good to say that you should try your best to at least get one Bitcoin, maybe 2.1 Bitcoin. But the real advice is you're never going to stop stacking Bitcoin. You're going to stack Bitcoin forever. I'm convinced that there's no point in time when I'm not going to be saving in Bitcoin. What else am I going to save in government debt IOUs? Is paper money? Like, no, it just makes no sense. This is why I think that once you become a Bitcoiner, hence why I wanted to play the Saylor clip in the beginning. Once you become a Bitcoiner, it's a one-way road. You're never going to not save in Bitcoin. And one of the things that I've noticed, at least with my friends that aren't as obsessed with Bitcoin, is that they kind of flip-flop. They're not full maximalists yet. They'll save a little in Bitcoin and then they'll sell it for fiat. And they're kind of in this vicious cycle. And I'm always telling them, like, guys, you just need to save. Like, just keep saving in Bitcoin. Don't touch it. For some reason, whenever I'm able to put my wealth into Bitcoin, it almost feels like a black hole. It's like it's there. I don't ever want to touch it. I don't even think about the Bitcoin that I have. I just know that it's secured. It's in my stamp seed. I got it in my cold storage. And this is the way. But once you're new to Bitcoin, there's still that fundamental thinking in your mind. It's like, how much Bitcoin do I really need? And of course, like I said, the goal should always be own one Bitcoin. Pass on one Bitcoin for as long as you can within your bloodline. And I think your ancestors will be very happy and they'll look at you like the legend that you are. But of course, you want to get as much Bitcoin. And we've done shows on Simply Bitcoin before that you guys can search if you're new to the channel. How much Bitcoin do you need to be in the 1%? Or rather, how much Bitcoin do you need to be in the 1% of Bitcoin holders? So we've been doing this topic a few different ways here, but I wanted to tweak it a little bit and just show that you're not bullish enough. I think a lot of us aren't as bullish as we say we are, because I know like the stats that we have right now are going to be worth an incredible amount of value, purchasing power in the future. And so I wanted to touch on the idea of it might be less Bitcoin than you think to actually have an incredible amount of wealth going in, 2-3 decades from now. So I'm starting here with the Glassnode picture. It's a bar graph, but it's kind of breaking down the different levels of hodlers out there. And we have Shrimp, which is less than 1 Bitcoin. I think these numbers might need to change a little bit, but this is more of just giving you the caliber of how much your holding is and what you would be considered, so that we can talk about it a little later in this segment. A crab, which is 1 in 10 Bitcoin, an octopus, which is 10 and 50 Bitcoin, a fish, which is 50 to 100, a dolphin, 100 to 50, a shark, which is 500 to 1K, a whale, which is 1,000 Bitcoin to 5,000 Bitcoin, and then the humpback whales out there over 5,000 Bitcoin, which is it's just incredible. Imagine being Micheal Saylor with 210,000 plus of Bitcoin, owning 1% of the total Bitcoin supply. Is absolutely incredible. We can all hope to be Saylors one day. Probably can't catch up to Saylor, but hey, today's topic is on the stacking size of 21 million sats or 0.21 Bitcoin. So I'm over here on lookintobitcoin.com, which is basically like the free version of Glassnode. So highly recommend you guys, if you want to look into the time chain, the numbers, and a lot of stuff going on, look into bitcoin.com. Is a great resource. And so I'm going to start first and foremost with addresses with balances over 1 million sat or 0.01 BTC. As you can see, this black line is the Bitcoin price, and I don't know what color this is. I think it's orange. This orange line is the total number of addresses throughout the history of Bitcoin. And you can see here, I'm at the very end. Yeah, see this one, they haven't updated it since July, since a month ago. So current price, or at least the price on this chart, was 62,000. Oh, wait, it just updated. Okay, it just updated 62,000. So this was yesterday. And there is 12,506,602 addresses with more than 1 million sats or 0.01 BTC. So if you have 1 million sats, you're already in kind of a small group of people. What, 1 in 12.5 million, which I think is it's pretty good. You know, that seems pretty solid. And keep it moving. Here we go to 10 million sats or 0.1 Bitcoin, addresses with balances over 0.1 Bitcoin. There is roughly 4.5 million, or 4.5 million addresses with over 10 million sats. So moving forward, we're going to go to 1 Bitcoin, over 1 Bitcoin, which I think this should be the goal for every single one of us. I really like the analogy of owning 1 Bitcoin is akin to owning, you know, a city block in Manhattan in the early 1800s. You want to hold on to that coin, that value for as long as possible. As we say, you know, hodl forever. It's going up forever. You need to, as the really bad meme of what hodl really spells, apparently people think it means hold on for dear life, but it's really just a misspelling of hold. All you need to do with Bitcoin is hold it for long term. This is not a get rich quick scheme. This is about preserving your value for the long term. So if you can get to 1 Bitcoin, highly recommend you do that. But I'm going to be doing some math on how powerful 21 million sats is, or 0.21 Bitcoin. So here we go. The numbers, at least as of yesterday, Bitcoin price 62,000. There is roughly 1 million addresses with 1 Bitcoin. And let's not forget that there is roughly around 60 million millionaires in the world today. And there's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin. So if you own 1 whole coin today, I would argue that you're already richer than most of the millionaires in the world, because they still have to catch up and stack sats. And if you hold that coin, you're not going to sell them that coin. So I would argue that every millionaire in the world, first and foremost, purely from mathematics, can't even get themselves a whole coin, which it should start to blow your mind once you start thinking of Bitcoin. And even if they could incentivize you to sell that Bitcoin, which I don't think is possible, I would say that they can't even get a whole coin ever. So they're late to the party. Shouts out to every single one of you guys that hashtag Frant ran Wall Street, Frant ran the millionaires, Frant ran the quote unquote, you know, smart money out there. All the wealthy people that don't own Bitcoin, I would argue you're already richer than them. And the reason I wanted to flip this theme on its head today is to show you that I think holding the amount of Bitcoin you have today will be an incredible amount of wealth moving forward. So let's not forget that the point of this is to hodl as much Bitcoin as possible. Don't stack shame in the chat. Any amount of sats you hold today is going to be an incredible amount of wealth. And why do we think that? Well, I'm over here. I got Creases BTC, aka Jesse Myers. He does incredible research on Twitter, on his website. And this is one of my favorite charts, because I think few people really understand how much wealth there is. What's the total wealth of all assets into the world? And we've seen this increase over the last couple of years. And there's a couple of different numbers that people throw around as what is the total available asset market, how much wealth is on planet Earth right now. But we're going to use this number, and I'll even change it a little bit so you guys can get a better idea. And also the idea, like, Bitcoin's not going to probably take all of the share of all total wealth in the world. It's not going to eventually be a $900 trillion market cap. It's going to take a significant portion of this, or even, you know, depending on how bearish you are, it might even just take a small portion of that. But I'm going to do the math for you so you understand that even if it takes a small portion of this, 21 million sats, aka 0.21 Bitcoin. The amount of Bitcoin you're holding today is going to be an incredible amount of wealth moving forward. So for the audio listeners, I got a chart here and it's showing the global asset value, which is $900 trillion. And there's $115 trillion in equities. There's $120 trillion in money and cash, derivatives. Are actually, this is just cash, 120 trillion in cash, 300 trillion in bonds, 330 trillion in real estate. And then you can see up here, top left, 6 trillion in cars and collectibles, 8 trillion in art, gold, roughly $12 trillion, and Bitcoin, we're hovering a little above $1 trillion. So Bitcoin is a tiny portion of the global asset market right now. And I would argue that that means that Bitcoin has an incredible amount of space to grow. So while people may look at this and be like, oh, Bitcoin's tiny, it doesn't even have a big portion of the global market share, I would say that it's infinity divided by 21 million, or 900 trillion divided by 21 million. So that's the math we're going to be doing. This is to show just how incredibly low the barrier of entry is. And remember, when I got into Bitcoin, it was one Bitcoin for $10,000. And doing the math this morning, it really kind of opened my eyes to the idea of 0.21 Bitcoin is roughly around the price of a whole Bitcoin when I got into Bitcoin in 2017. So doing some maths here, quick maths. I'm not a math guy, but quick maths here. The goal is get to 21 million sats, or 0.21 Bitcoin, which today, roughly at the 60K price, was $12,600. So for $12,600, you can get 21 million sats, or 0.21 Bitcoin. And again, we're going to do this math so that we can show you the potentials of where Bitcoin is going. So 21 million divided by 0.21 equals 100 million. So, or 1/100th million of the total Bitcoin supply. And this is one of my favorite frameworks to think about Bitcoin. If you get one coin in Bitcoin, it's one of 21 million of the total Bitcoin supply. You get 0.21, it's 1/100th million of the total Bitcoin supply. So I like to think of this idea, this framework, when it comes to how much sats you hold today, how much Bitcoin you hold today, because it's not about the dollar amount. It's about your total share of the total amount of Bitcoins that will ever be created. And we can argue that there might be about 5 million Bitcoins that are lost. So it's significantly less, but we're going to make this simple and use the 21 million Bitcoin number as the map. So total assets divided by 100 million. It would be 900 trillion divided by 100 million would mean that the 21 million sats, or 0.21 Bitcoin, if Bitcoin were to devour the entire global asset market, would equal a $9 million price for 21 million sats. So 0.21, if it took the entire Bitcoin or entire global asset market, it would be $9 million for 0.21 Bitcoin. Who knows how long that's going to be, but just putting this math and this framework in your brain, it really starts to blow your mind. And using that $900 trillion number for global market assets, if it took half of the market, that would mean that 21 million sats, or 0.21 Bitcoin, would equal $4.5 million. If it took 10% of the $900 trillion total global asset market, that would mean that 21 million sats, 0.21 Bitcoin, would equal $900,000. So does a trade from $12,000 to $9 million, or even $12,000 to $900,000 sound like a good trade to you? Sounds like an incredible trade to me. And of course, the idea is you're never going to probably stop. You don't just hit 21 million sats or 0.21 Bitcoin and be like, I'm never going to buy any more Bitcoin ever again. I think this is the idea of like the sats that you're holding today is going to be an incredible amount of wealth moving forward. But who knows how long this is going to take? We have no clue how long this is going to take. Will it take decades? Will we even be here for that? I don't know. All I know is infinity divided by 21 million. It's going up forever, but we know everything is trending to zero against Bitcoin, and it's not going away. As Saylor likes to use the framework up, it's either Bitcoin is either worth zero or it's going to suck up a significant amount of the total global asset market. You can make your bets. All of us Bitcoiners have made our bets, but one thing's for sure, Bitcoin is not going away. And this other chart here, just kind of breaking down the different Bitcoin ownership distributions. I don't have to go through all this because we're talking about you as an individual, but you can see how much Bitcoin is distributed across the entire Bitcoin ecosystem, from miners, individuals, businesses, ETFs, governments, lost Bitcoin, the amount of coins that Satoshi allegedly holds, and then the remaining to be mined Bitcoin, which is roughly around, I guess I could have pulled it up, like 1.3 million Bitcoin. But remember, the idea is, think of the framework of the amount of sats that you own in the context of the total Bitcoin market in general. And so moving forward, just some little PSAs, some context here. The important thing is how many sats are under your control, not the dollar amount. This is one of the things that you have to really flip your mental operating system when it comes to becoming a Bitcoiner. A lot of times, once you go down the rabbit hole long enough, it kind of happens inherently. But for you new entrants, I would start to shift that now. Change your mental operating system. Change your mental relationship with money and think in Bitcoin. Think in sats. Don't think in terms of fiat. Yes, we talk about the Bitcoin price in fiat terms, the purchasing power of your Bitcoin constantly, not only on this show, but in general, because I really do believe that the Bitcoin price is a real-time metric of people's understanding of Bitcoin, but it's really about the purchasing power. And once you start thinking in Bitcoin, once you start pricing in sats, and you think of your net worth as the amount of Bitcoin under your control, and that's the only number that really matters, your thinking starts to shift, and you're like, okay, the dollar amount doesn't matter. Especially when they're constantly debasing the dollar amount, which they're just making more dollars. Like, the dollar amount eventually is going to get into hyperinflation terms, and it won't even matter. It's about the amount of things you can get for a single Bitcoin. And of course, it's Opti here, so I got to throw some memes in here for you guys. Of course, the classic. It's infinity divided by 21 million. Yes, I'm using the math of $900 trillion divided by 21 million. But once you understand how the fiat system works, they can print dollars into infinity. There is no end to the dollars as long as the system keeps on going. As long as you trust in the system, they will print dollars into oblivion. So that's why the meme of infinity divided by 21 million. The hard cap of Bitcoin compared to the infinite dollars that they can literally spin up and print out. So moving forward, this one's a little more updated. Wait, where'd it go? This is an updated meme for, you guys out there. We got a staunch meme supporters in the chat. So I got to drop the memes in here to appease the wolves in the chat. So under 1 million sats, or rather from 1 million sats to dust and no sats, you're a debt slave. Sorry to inform you, if you haven't got off zero in terms of owning Bitcoin, you are still in the debt fiat system. You are a debt slave. Wake up, Neo. They have you. You need to start saving in Bitcoin. And then the Bitcoin pleb range, which is roughly, 25 million sats or 0.25 Bitcoin and 1 million sats or 0.01. Then there's the Bitcoin soldier from 0.25 to half a Bitcoin. Bitcoin mercenary from half a Bitcoin to 1 Bitcoin. The Bitcoin yeoman from 1 Bitcoin to 3 Bitcoin. The Bitcoin knight from 3 Bitcoin to 10 Bitcoin. And the Bitcoin baron 10 to roughly under 21 Bitcoin. And the Bitcoin lord from 10 to 21. Wait, that one's off. I'm doing it last. Bitcoin king, more than 21 Bitcoin. So who will you be for your bloodline? Who will you be for your ancestors? Will you be a king? Who knows? But I really like this meme that Alan Watts just dropped. Alan B. Watts on Twitter. And this is what it's all about. And this is the point of today's bit. Not only to explain to you that you don't need to hold as much Bitcoin as you want. Yes, you want to hold as much Bitcoin as possible. This is a game of Hungry Hippo. Own as many sats as humanly possible. Price your life in Bitcoin. Save in Bitcoin as much as you can. Do you really need to go buy all this stuff that, to impress the Joneses out there? It's like, no. Once you start to think in Bitcoin, once you start to think in a limited hard cap money and your portion of that, you start to realize a lot of things that you're buying you probably don't need. So this is the point of this last meme, and then I'm going to pass it on to Chris and James. It goes by Alan B. Watts. An unproductive man will by necessity leak sats over time. A productive man will not only not leak sats, but increase the size of his stack. Choose wisely. Hashtag Bitcoin. So hopefully I made my point today that I fundamentally believe that 0.21 Bitcoin, on a long enough time frame, maybe it's 10 years, maybe it's you passing it on to your great-great-grandchildren, will be an incredible amount of wealth. And if you're doing the opportunity cost of the price of 21 million sats or 0.21 Bitcoin today versus it compared to the total global asset market, I think it's a good trade. I think you guys should go out there. If you have $12,000 sitting around, which probably more than most people have, you should definitely smash buy Bitcoin today. But if you don't have 21 million sats, and that should be your goal. I think as a Bitcoiner, you kind of go through this levels where like first you want to get 1 million sats, then you want to get 10 million sats, then 21 million sats, then half a coin, then a full coin. And then you want to be one of the legends that owns multiple coins. And we all aspire to be a Micheal Saylor out there and own 1% of the total Bitcoin supply, but we probably can't get there. But hopefully I explained for you guys just the power of stacking Bitcoin and where this might go. Anyways, I ranted way too long. Chris, what's your thoughts on this topic?
Hit him with the horn. No, Opti, great rant. I want to cook. So I know you mentioned CK, a good friend of mine in Opti's. He has this meme that he says 37 sats is generational wealth. And I'm about to break this down for you. So Opti did a good job breaking down 1 Bitcoin, 0.21 Bitcoin. I'm going to try to break down 263,000 sats. So that is if you were to divide the entire Bitcoin network, so 21 million Bitcoin divided by the denomination of sats by 8 billion people. I know the number is about 7.7, but to make numbers easier, let's just say there's 8 billion people in the world. If you were to equally divide the Bitcoin network, and obviously sats have been lost, Satoshi, has about 1 million coins himself, that would be about 263,000 sats per person, globally distributed equally among everyone in the world. Obviously, that's not the case. Some people have more, some people have less. Obviously, we're all trying to keep up with Saylor and Satoshi. But 263,000 sats is the equivalent of 160 US cuck bucks. So $160 in US currency will currently get you 263,000 sats. But breaking down the meme further, so obviously CK has the meme 37 sats is generational wealth. He took that number because when he got into Bitcoin, it was 2016. In 100 years, from instead of 2016 to 2116, so 100 years forward, the block reward for Bitcoin will be 37 sats. So that means that the global Bitcoin network will be competing every block to get a subsidy of 37 sats along with obviously transaction fees, but the subsidy itself will be 37 sats. So they're competing globally for 37 sats, and you don't know what basically the transaction fees will be at that time. We're assuming much higher than they are currently today, but the subsidy itself will be 37 sats. So when you think about it, there is 52,000 blocks per year if there's 210,000 blocks per 4-year epoch or thereabout. So that's assuming that there's 52,000 blocks per year. If you had 1% of the global hash rate, which would be a lot of the global hash rate at the time, that means that you're expecting to win 525 blocks per year. And that is to cover the operations of all your mining, your electricity, paying out your staff and everything. That means that if you were to multiply the 37 sats just from the subsidy, that's the only thing that you can guarantee because you don't know what the transaction fees are going to be, times 525 blocks for the year for the 1% of the hash rate. That means that your total revenue with just subsidy alone would be 19,425 sats. So think about that. You can get 10 times what the subsidy will be today if you had 1% of the hash rate for 160 bucks. Like, think about that. That blows your mind. You can have 10 times more revenue than can be guaranteed by having 1% of the global hash rate in 100 years from now. Like, that's really hard to fathom when you think if we think the Bitcoin network's going to grow and continue to expand. Obviously, we're expecting we know the exact block that the 28th epoch, or when 37 sats will be, is block 5,670,000. If you're assuming, we know by code 210,000 blocks is every epoch. And so obviously we start at 50, 25, 12.25, 12.5, 6.25, and now we're in the epoch of 3.125 Bitcoin. So that's just to say, like, obviously CK was saying 37 sats is generational wealth because 1% of the global network will be competing to try the global Bitcoin network will be competing for 37 sats for the epoch 28 at block 5,670,000. So just to put that in perspective, if $160 will get you a huge chunk of Bitcoin. So I know that's to not stack shame anyone. Hopefully everyone can, save enough $160 to stack what would be the equivalent if you were to equally divide out Bitcoin. That's 263,000 sats today. Obviously, we aspire to get 1 million sats, 10 million sats, 21 million sats, a whole Bitcoin if you can make it. But I hope that my great grandchildren or great grandkids will be like, what are US dollars or what's dollars? Just like we make fun of the Zimbabwe dollar, the $100 trillion note that I have here framed away to remember fiat is shit. Bitcoin is what you want. You want the hardest money in the world. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, look, I got a worthless, boulevard here. This is where the dollar is going to eventually get to. But Chris, this is why I tell you guys, Chris is the right side of the bell curve version of Opti, because that was great. Really love the math there. And shout out to CK. It always reminds me, like, no one's bullish enough. Like, I get bull-tarded. Like, I'm perpetually bull-tarded. And even when I hear those numbers, I'm still like, man, that is incredible. Like, imagine if we get there and it's like, no, we are going there. We can't even fathom how big this is going to be.
Shout out to Nick Hoffman, me and Opti's buddy over at Bitcoin Magazine. You stack sats for your last name, not for your first name. So that, 100 years, we may not be here, James, Opti, and I, unless we have really great ways of improving health and making our lives live that much longer. But if anything, I hope my great-great-grandkids will be around and remember my last name or our last name.
Totally agree. All right, James, what's your thoughts on this topic? Maybe what Chris said, what I said, or if you want to take it another route, what's your thoughts on none of us are bullish enough?
Yeah, no, 100%. For anyone that's looking at that meme and might be, on the, a Bitcoin slave or a Bitcoin plebe and feeling, insecure about their stack size, that they don't have enough. If your time preference is long enough and you have, 3 to 5 or even, more decades out in front of you, we are still so early. And, any amount of Bitcoin that you could gobble up today, kind of like Pac-Man, gobbling up as much as you can is smart and very important to do, because we are still so early. And when you zoom out and see what the block rewards are going to be, 20, 30 years from now, what we're getting now is a complete discount. And, based on the way the price is today, people might think that we're, they're not early enough, but we are still completely early to this. Most people that don't understand Bitcoin or don't even know what it is still, about like 95+% of the people in my life still have no idea what that is. And I live in a very populated area. So, having 0.21 Bitcoin is a great goal to have. And like Opti was saying, you want to continue to still stack after that. That's why buying every week or dollar cost averaging is so important. Ultimately my take is that you want to have more Bitcoin that you have fiat in savings, just because that money is becoming melted. But if obviously you're at a point in your life where you need to use that savings for other things, because inflation is so rampant, that's a hole you got to kind of dig yourself out of. But chipping away at the available Bitcoin supply, which is shrinking constantly, is one of the best things you can be doing. You want to be dollar cost averaging and buying, as much of it as you possibly can. And if Bitcoin were to get to the point, well, I guess like Opti said before, I think you said like having one full Bitcoin is equivalent to having a city street in Manhattan in the 1800s. Well, maybe like having 2.1 Bitcoin right now is equivalent to having a quarter of that street. A couple storefronts, apartments, bodegas, like that'd be a great thing to have. That's always building up and always going to become more valuable. So, that's a great goal for most people that are just starting out, and for anyone that's way out in front of that. Obviously, we're all doing the same thing, right? We're continuing to stack, almost like we're collecting Bitcoin as much as we can. We want to reach a point where we could use this Bitcoin for other things, or if hyperinflation hits, we might have no choice but to use this Bitcoin for other things. We hit $9 million a coin. We're probably going to be using that Bitcoin to buy things just because of the gains alone, or just because the Bitcoin is the new unit of account that merchants are using, the preferred unit of account. So, having, obviously you want to have enough to collect and just kind of hold as a store of value for long term, for generational wealth that you're going to be passing down. But you also want to keep stacking because you might have to use this one day to spend. So, again, for anyone looking at those charts and feeling like they're closer to the bottom, you're probably still way ahead of most people because you're listening to this podcast here. And, you want to be able to, gobble up like Pac-Man as much as you possibly can. And most importantly, that money's not going to be safe if you're keeping it on the exchange. So as you're dollar cost averaging, like what I personally like to do is maybe every month or so, or every million sats, I'll be moving stuff into cold storage. Obviously, you want to stamp your seed into a piece of metal. You want to hold your private keys and pass that down through the generations. That's all the energy and value that you put into the world. So it's another kind of point to make there is that you're putting energy into the world that's becoming debased if it's held in fiat. So you want to convert that to Bitcoin as soon as you possibly can, so it grows. So it's not going to become debased. There's 21 million Bitcoin only. Probably actually less than that due to Bitcoins that were lost or they'll never be sold. So it's the idea is you put energy into the world, you provide value to the world, you get paid in fiat most likely with that energy and value. It erodes away if you keep it in your savings. So transfer it into Bitcoin as soon as you can.
Totally agree. Couldn't agree more. And really, the meme you were saying, I think most people fundamentally miss the point here. It's like this is a land grab in cyberspace. Like this is a digital land grab right now, and you want to not only get your portion but hold on to your portion for the long term. And that's the goal of being a Bitcoiner, is what James was just saying. Hold on to this wealth for a long time. Get your portion today. I like to say play Hungry Hippo, but play Digital Pac-Man might be a better one. I don't know. They're both Pac-Man might be better because it's actually coined. Anyways, let's plug our boys over at the Orange Pill app. Guys, stack friends who stack sats. As you can tell from today's bit in the news, Bitcoiners are going to have an extreme amounts of wealth moving forward. And you want to not only usher in that wealth the correct way, but you want to surround yourself with like-minded individuals. So if you're the crazy Bitcoiner today in your community, you have no Bitcoin friends other than those on Twitter, get on the Orange Pill app, see if there's people around you, maybe create a Bitcoin meetup, go to a Bitcoin meetup. You want to interact with Bitcoiners in meet space because it's that much better. You need to build a community, build that circular community, build your local community around you of like-minded individuals, because I don't know if you've noticed, but things are getting kind of crazy out there, and it's getting a little harder to become a free thinker or to remain a free thinker in today's world. So you need to make sure you are surrounded by people that get it. Stack friends who stack sats. On that note, let's talk with James about Stamp Seed and a little bit of freedom. We're going to have a little freedom talk today.
The Daily Culture.
Before we do that, though, I completely almost blanked on this, guys. Go to KABOOMRACKS. KABOOMRACKS, the best place to buy, sell, and host your mining equipment. Get in touch with the KABOOMRACKS team. They are the best. They will give you white glove service. They will recommend whether you should, be stacking sats or get into the mining game, whether you should set up a mining rig in your garage, whether you have a wife, whether she's going to like it. Maybe they can make it silent so that you don't get absolutely wrecked out there by your wife because she's like, why are you spending so much money on all of this loud heat thing devices in my living room? What's going on here? Anyways, they have an instant hosting plan right now. There's a special offer, Bitmain Antminer S19K Pro, 120 terahashes. Once your payment goes through, you're stacking KYC free Bitcoin instantly. So if you're thinking about it, get in touch with the KABOOMRACKS team and they will set you on the correct course. So on that note, James, let's before, as you guys can tell, James is the creator of the Stamp Seed. We plugged it a few times on today's show. But before we talk about some of the new projects you're about to release, some new projects that just came out, the stuff you're going to do at the conferences, it is 4th of July tomorrow for us Americans, very important holiday for us. And there's a lot of parallels in regards to what 4th of July means and what Bitcoin means. And you were talking about before the show that you'd like to do a little plug on that one. So James, platform's all yours. Why is Bitcoin and 4th of July such an important thing?
Okay. Yes. So, obviously 4th of July is tomorrow. So we're right on the cusp of it. Celebrating the American Revolution and the freedoms that we earned through that revolution. And I'd be remiss if we didn't connect that with the peaceful Bitcoin revolution, because Bitcoin is freedom, right? Like having sound money is the ultimate freedom that we have this day and age. Mainly having the ability to use our own money without a third party getting involved and telling us what we can do, what we can't do, when we can spend, when we can't spend, for how much. That is like kind of like the overarching ultimate freedom here. And, obviously first, which most everyone knows here, we have to trade that dirty fiat for pure sats as soon as possible. And then, if to be free, you have to self-custody that Bitcoin on a hardware wallet. If you're not doing that, you're pretty much going against, you only done about half the work at that point. So self-custody, owning that money is the ultimate freedom. You have full possession of it. Nobody else does. Your 12 to 24 words, stamped into a titanium plate or a steel plate or memorized, which, I personally don't recommend, are that's literally your keys to your future, your generational wealth. It's held there. So, there's no bank that's saying, oh, you can't spend this much. Oh, you can't travel with this much. Ultimate freedom right there. You could also run your own node, right? Anyone could have their own version of the blockchain, run their own node, confirm their transactions are real, which is an ultimate freedom, because with a bank, you don't have, a copy of the entire ledger. You can't confirm that, transactions aren't being double spent. You literally can have a copy of that node and anybody could do it. And that only strengthens the network, of course, as an added benefit. Also, you could literally mine your own Bitcoin. You could earn your own KYC sats by joining a mining pool or leveling up even further than that. But you could mine your own Bitcoin versus, what is anti-freedom, which is the Federal Reserve literally printing currency out of thin air, debasing the value that you already have, adding zeros, not even printing sometimes, just adding zeros to the balance sheets of central banks. They're literally printing more, which is eroding what you have, versus what you could do on the other side with Bitcoin is literally mine your own, have your own KYC Bitcoin that's based on that fixed 21 million cap supply. And you have a direct connection with the, not the money printer, but the Bitcoin faucet, let's say. So that's kind of like some top level things. And then like overarching, like there's some parallels from the American Revolution that connect with some principles of the peaceful Bitcoin revolution, right? There's some parallels with those principles there. So just really quick into what those are. You have natural rights, the rule of law, popular sovereignty, which is a big one, and individualism. And all four of those things have connections with Bitcoin. And it's pretty much what us here in the States, our country was formed on, is those principles. And how they relate to Bitcoin is the first being natural rights. Like anybody has access to Bitcoin. Anyone could opt into the network. It's global. You could be in a third world country without a proper banking system in place. And if you have an internet connection, you could literally tap into the Bitcoin network, and the value you're providing, say you're making, I don't know, necklaces out of seashells in a third world country, you could sell that not just locally, but to the entire world if you're tapped into the Bitcoin network. So people who previously didn't have access to these things because just based on where they were living, geographic unluckiness, I guess, they now have the ability to opt into the Bitcoin network. And there's nothing really stopping them from doing that other than probably an internet connection. So it's natural to everybody. There's no gatekeeper to entering into Bitcoin. So it's a natural right. When you also look at the rule of law, right? Bitcoin is, nobody is above the law of Bitcoin. The key critical components of Bitcoin are going to remain unchanged. 21 million hard cap supply. That's not going to be altered or changed over time. Obviously, there are certain improvements that have to happen to Bitcoin, like, Bit39 or Lightning, things that just have to happen that are all based on consensus. It's something that everybody's agreeing on. But if people don't agree on something, it could fork off or just dies and, doesn't become something that's adopted to the Bitcoin blockchain. But the key components, 21 million hard cap supply, the difficulty adjustment, how many blocks are being mined a year, that stuff is not changing. Nobody's above the law of Bitcoin. So you can sleep at night knowing that, your sats are not going to become debased.
Totally agree, James. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah, I got two more. Third one, popular sovereignty. The sovereign power is not held by the central bank, but it's held by the holders. Nobody can, get in there and, take away your Bitcoin. You hold the own private piece of your Bitcoin. So if you want to be a sovereign individual, you need sound sovereign money to do that. And with Bitcoin, you can. And then individualism is the last one. And that's like the biggest one for me. And that's, you're independent and self-reliant. There's no king, there's no central bank getting in your way of you and your wealth. It's literally your keys, your Bitcoin, and then lastly, your legacy. Could all be held literally in 12 to 24 words. So those four things are very important if you want to truly be a free sovereign individual. They relate to the American Revolution, obviously, and then they relate to Bitcoin. So I just wanted to kind of share that with you guys and point out a couple things there. And this 4th of July, I'll be celebrating. Obviously, I'm also going to be stamping. Well, I'm going to be loading up a new hardware wallet. I actually got a nice new Q1 that I was gifted from Ben. And I'm going to be stamping my seed with titanium, moving my funds over, just because I want a more secure wallet and I want a new set of seed words. And I'm going to do that on the 4th of July, right? Like I can't do that at a bank. I can't go to a bank on the 4th of July. They're closed. They're literally not open. You can't even transact my funds that day. So I'll do it at my own house, Casa de Caruso. I will move my funds over and do what I want to do with them on a day that you can't even go to a bank and say hello to the person that's holding all of your money. Maybe I'll even stamp my seed and try to connect it with the banging of the fireworks. This way, my neighbors aren't hearing my hammer going off. No one's knowing what's going on. Like Andy Dufresne in Shawshank Redemption, breaking out, connecting with the lightning. So it's the ultimate freedom, though, right? Like what a way to truly celebrate it, right? Moving those funds over in my nice new Q1 there. But and that's that connection there. So
I love it.
Mainly self-custody, right? Like holding your own keys, holding your own Bitcoin, having your 12 to 24 words in titanium is literally the ultimate freedom, the thing that you can't do anywhere else. You could travel anywhere with this, or you can memorize it. You can sleep like a baby at night, knowing that it's yours and no one can interfere with it. You could spend over 10,000 without anyone saying no. You could travel with it without anybody saying no. And ultimately, best of all, right, it's not becoming debased by the people that are in control of it because they're not printing anymore. So, now we'll talk a little bit about Stampseed. Obviously, you have it up there. That's the entire kit that you guys see. You have obviously the hammer's pretty badass. I'm holding it now. People love this thing. It's got like a mind of its own almost in the Bitcoin space. But you basically, use that hammer to stamp metal stamps that look like little nails. You can see them on the top of that kit right there. And you're just hammering your words, right? And let's look at that video for a second. And you're just hammering them in. And it's titanium, so it's virtually indestructible. It's got a higher melting point than steel. It's not corrosive. It'll never rust. So if you have it in a damp environment or your basement or you're backpacking with it, it's not going to, corrode or flood away. It's not, dampness is not going to affect it. House fires are not going to affect it. And the house fire is like the biggest fear most people have. You could literally bury this item. And what I like most about this compared to some other options that are out there, which, anything better than, this paper here is good, right? Like the hardware wallets, like I got my Q1 with this paper, like it's, it's great. I have something to record on temporarily, but you don't want to keep it on here. You want to transfer it to the metal as soon as possible, to make it virtually indestructible. And what I like about this single piece is that Jameson Lopp has like two things that he recommends when it comes to seed phrase storage, and he's tested the hell out of all these. And it's small form factor and one solid piece where your letters are stamped into it. So if you have multiple pieces, that could introduce a whole a litany of problems that could come your way. If a kid gets a hold of the device that you're storing them in and spreads them out everywhere, loses one or two of them, you have loose pieces scattered everywhere. Loose pieces or multiple piece devices like some of the cassettes that are out there with those little tiles that you put in. I don't recommend those because they could seize up. They're also made of varying materials of metal, and then once some of those devices heat up, they expand and pieces fall out. So you're with this solution, it's it's the proof of work method because you're literally hammering things in, but we're protecting our Bitcoin, so we're doing this as the proof of work way. And your letters become one with the metal. You can see they're in there pretty deep. They're not on loose pieces. They can't get scattered. You could literally bury it. We have these holes on it. You could, mount it in your wall. You could mount it under a desk, with those holes. But that's actually kind of a good segue into some new products that are coming out. And one of them is actually the cover plate solution that we have. So we have, a cover, a back plate that you would put your, up to 5 seat plates in, and you have your security screws there. Now, what's cool about this is like these screws are made of the same titanium that the plate's made of. It's not made of like a shittier metal that's going to melt faster or, it's consistent with the metal that you're storing your seed words in, as is the front and the back. So this is going to be available pretty soon. We showed it off in Prague. We're going to be showing it in Nashville too. So if you're there, you could stop by and see it. But completely covered, which is nice with security screws. And also, if you say you don't want to have all your words on one plate, which is understandable, right? Like you want to kind of spread things out, maybe do a little multi-sig or maybe do some 2 or 3 sharding. We actually, I don't know if you guys can see this now, but we have the Shamir backup plates now. And if you look at the bottom there, you're actually able to put your share number, your threshold, your total shares, and your wallet number. So if you're using something like a Trezor, or something that supports Shamir backup, Shamir secret sharing, you could spread out your seed words into 20, into up to 16 different word sets with 20 words per word set, and set a threshold of, like, let's say 5. You would need 5 of these plates to unlock all the funds. So this way, everything isn't in one spot. Then you could hide those in different spots, separate them geographically, share them with your family. So that's actually on the site now, the Shamir backup. We showed it off in Prague, and it did pretty well because most people have Trezors there. And I know Trezor said that their new Trezor Safe 5 is going to be defaulted to Shamir backup, so this would go with it. And then their Trezor Safe 3 that came out a year ago will also be Shamir backup as well. So, and then on the other side of this, it's just like a demo. So we also have the poor man's multi-sig, where you could just break up into 2 or 3 methods. So, 2 plates would have all your words on them, and you could just separate them however you feel fit. And then probably the most important product of all. So, we're Stampseed, right? Everyone says, oh, you guys only have 24 word. Most people could put, a 12 word on a 24 word plate, or they put two 12 words on a 24 word plate. But we're coming out with the 12 word, right? So this nice little plate here, it's going to fit perfectly in the jig. Like, we're not throwing a hardball at you guys or anything like that, or a curveball. You could actually use the same jig that if you already own it. We're going to have these spacers available too, and you just slide the spacer in the jig. And then you can put your 12 word in there, and there's plenty of room. We're not making people buy a whole nother setup. Like, basically, once you have these tools, you have everything you're ever going to need for any plate templates that we're going to be coming out with. So this will be available soon too. And then we'll also have these sort of cover plates for the 12 word as well. So we got 12 word, we have titanium cover plates and security screws, we have Shamir backup, and 2 or 3 sharding. So hopefully all the solutions you need are available. And if anyone has any questions, you can reach out to us on Twitter. We'll be in Nashville as well. We're going to be demoing. You could come by the booth and stamp a letter or 2, try it out, see if it's for you, test out the proof of work method backing up your seed. We'll have a booth set up there for the 3 days.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Great job, James. It's great to see you haven't been on the show in a couple of months, and just see you've been shipping, proof of work behind the scenes. You come on, release, show some sneak peeks and some cool new products. Absolutely love it. But Chris, I did see you hit me in a private chat and you want to jump in. So what's up, bro?
Yeah, no, James is definitely more of the expert with the seed stamps and all that, but I completely agree with him I've seen a couple, and James knows what I'm talking about, the ones that you like screw in and it's like pieces that you can like put in there. I get so nervous with that because I know my stupid self, my clumsy ass self would drop that thing and the words would either explode all over the place. And then even James, you might know the numbers better than me, but even if you had all 24 words, if it was your 24 words, but if you were to drop it and let's just say they remained the same as the 24 words, if you were to throw those on a table or like mix them up, to recover your 24 words without knowing the order is like still orders of like you could have the 24 words out of the 2048 and it's still nearly impossible, like statistically. Like it would take millions, if not billions or trillions of iterations to do it. Even if you had the exact 12 or 24 words, like they're just, maybe not with 12, but with 24, like the math behind it is like, you'd be fucked. It would be the equivalent of like burning your seed.
Yeah, it's like manual, biological brute forcing. Like it's just impossible. But each of those is a little letter, so it's not even a word. So all those letters would be scattered. So you'd have to figure out like what words to make from those. They're like, I call them Scrabble tiles, basically. It's like a Scrabble tile. You have to build that again.
I was even saying in a perfect world, like even if the words remained intact and like even if you were to take the 24 tiles and they were the 24 words and you were to throw them on the ground, it would, if you didn't know the order or at least like half of them, it would still be very, very difficult to brute force.
It would be.
Just like like it's trillions upon trillions of combinations if you don't know any rough order. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and if that thing's in a house fire, like I've tested these things, and I usually don't talk about the competition, but those ones I just don't like at all. I think it's like a terrible solution. Like if you put heat to one of those cassette-based seed storage where you have those little Scrabble pieces that you're putting in, once the heat hits it, the layers expand. Like you could see it in our highlights on Twitter. They expand, and then like the tiles just literally fall out. Not to mention if it bends or something like that, they're obviously falling out too. So, and loose pieces or anything with multiple pieces, I'm just not for it. And some people might think it's easier because they see the hammer and they're saying, "Oh my God, I have to hammer my password." That's such a low tech solution to to Bitcoin, to a high tech Bitcoin. But like I said before, this is the proof of work method. Like, you're storing your hard money in self custody. You have to make sure the backup is stored the right way. And if it's not even that much harder. Like, we made these tools to be super easy. Like, if anyone that's tested this at any conference you've been to, there's been like a 99.9% success rate. No one's had an issue with it. Just because the weight of the hammer, the brass tip of the hammer, all those things, the angle, the short handle, all those things just make it easier. And you want to have your Bitcoin, safe on, the most proof of work method. And like those little tile pieces, that takes just as long as stamping your seed in a 24-word plate, just because they're so tiny and you got to grab them. And, when you close it, you got to make sure you don't shift anything. It's not a good time. So if anyone has any questions about that stuff or wants to check it out, you can see our highlights on X, or, we stress tested the shit out of these things too. You can check out our website. We hit them with roofing torches, which is like Elon Musk, not a flamethrower. It gets very hot. The plate actually turns like cherry red, and the chains that are holding it together start melting, but the plate doesn't. Acid baths. We beat it up with the hammer. Like, this one, I tried marring as much as I could. You can still see every word that's in here. This plate is the one that we stress tested through multiple rounds on the website. We've also had last 4th of July, I had my neighbors blow one up with an M80. We had a steamroller pass by our office once. We had to run it over with a steamroller. Brandon from Green Candle has been doing some crazy tests with it too. And the thing just survives, right? Like, it's of course it does. It's a solid piece of titanium that your letters are stamped into. Like, nothing's going anywhere. This isn't going to happen to most people, right? Like, this crazy damage, but if it does, you're protected. And, you also want your C words to be time proof, like ink fades. This could easily be thrown away and mistaken for something else. It could get damp and, it could run. It's just, when you stamp your stuff in titanium, you're not going to forget you did it. You're not going to forget where you put it. So
100% agree. 100% agree, guys. I think right now is a good point to wrap up, but to put a bow on what James was saying, one of the things that keeps you around, at least in the Bitcoin space, is being a little paranoid. And like we covered in today's show, hey, maybe you don't own 10 or 100 Bitcoin and you're like, oh, I don't need to put my seed phrase on titanium. It's good on a piece of paper. It's not that much money. You need to think in terms of how long is this seed phrase going to last? Will I be able to recover my Bitcoin in 10, 20, 30 years from now? This is how you survive the long game. Only the paranoid survive. Don't overcomplicate things like James was saying. Just get yourself a titanium seed plate. I got the Simply Bitcoin branded one here, the limited edition one, and secure your generational wealth for the long term. Well, and appreciate it, James.
And sorry, one thing, Simply, right? Code Simply, you're going to get 15% off. I saw someone in the chat ask if we're having a sale, but use that code, you'll get 15% off. Each kit comes with one plate, and you could buy as many plates as you need individually after that. So we sell them in 1 packs, 3 packs, and 5 packs.
Let's go.
And then, like I said, if you have a 12-word or you're going to get 12-word down the line, the kit's going to work with that. As you get new wallets, as you get new sets of seed words, like you already bought the kit, you have everything you need. You just buy your plates as you need them. You have a friend that you orange pilled, let them borrow your kit, tell them to buy a plate. They're set up. So we wanted to kind of, equip you with this tool set that you have for life.
Love it, James. Well, thanks for coming on again, bro. We'll have to bring you back on. I'll see you in Nashville. I'll be at the booth.
I gotta get some seed plates for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, get yourself some KYC free stamp seeds at Nashville Bitcoin conference.
We'll be accepting Bitcoin while we're there too, so feel free to stop by and get everything you need. We're gonna have some limited edition 21 only made plates that have a special Nashville design on it too. So if you want a souvenir for your time being there, we do it at all our conferences. They sell pretty quick, so stop by early.
Let's go. Awesome.
It'd be funny if I get stopped through the airport. They're like, what the hell is this hammer? Like, is this allowed in a check bag?
Yeah, maybe don't put it on carry-on.
Wait till you have,
check it in.
Wait till you have 30 of them in your suitcase and you're going through TSA like I did. You know, they don't stop us. You just can't. You just don't want to bring them in your carry-on. That's the only thing. So
amazing. All
yeah.
right, guys. Well, for the audio listeners out there, go to stampseed.com. You can use promo code simply all caps, or go follow James at stamp_seed on Twitter. Really appreciate you coming on today's show, James. Hopefully the people in the crowd realize they need to secure their generational wealth on something other than paper. So
exactly. Thanks
appreciate
for having
it,
me.
James.
Thank
no
you
worries.
for having me. Yeah.
Let me pull you behind the scenes and roll this out, hang out for a little bit. Chris, the one and only Chris Alamo, appreciate you coming on, dropping hot sauce on today's show. Plug your Twitters and your socials for the people so they can get some more Chris signal, and we'll roll this one out.
Yeah, on Twitter at Chris Alamo and then the number 6. On Nostr, just Chris Alamo at b.tc.
Tell him your NPub.
Yeah, I can't do my NPub off the top of my head, but Chris Alamo at b.tc is the name of it. So that's my NIP5 identifier. Opti, always a great time shooting the shit with you. I hope you and everyone else in the chat that's American has a happy 4th of July. Happy and safe 4th of July. Don't blow off your hand. Don't blow up your seed plates or your paper. Put it on a stamp seed. So I hope everyone has a blast and a safe time. And I guess I'll see everyone on Friday, if not early next week. And looking forward to seeing you in Nashville.
Let's go. All right, Chris, thanks for showing up today. We got a solid bench of co-hosts for the Simply Bitcoin team. Anyways, guys, we love you. We appreciate you. Hopefully you're getting bullish on your stack. Hopefully you're securing your seed phrase. Hopefully you understand that this is a journey. You're on a lifelong journey to stack as many sets as possible. So, of course, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And for everyone that hung out throughout the whole show, we are also doing a 4th of July discount sale, 21% off on simplybitcoin.com. I think it's already live. So if you want to get some of the merch, support the boys over here at Simply Bitcoin, we totally appreciate it. If it's not necessarily on the website, you just use July 4th. For the promo code, but I think it's live right now on the website. Anyways, we love you guys. We'll be back tomorrow, same time as always, 12:15 p.m. Eastern time. And on that note, this is your boy Opti, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Peace out.
It was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, on a mission to enable independence.